Her husband took his lover to a fancy gala, leaving his pregnant wife at home. But what he didn't know was she was the guest of honor. The grand hall went silent when the master of ceremonies announced in a loud, proud voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor, Elena Díaz Méndez." 500 heads turned toward the main staircase, where an elegant woman descended with grace. Elena wore a deep red dress that hugged her 7-month pregnant belly, radiating dignity. In the front row, Álvaro Méndez went pale as a ghost. Sitting beside him was his lover, Renata Palazuelos del Brazo. Their eyes met for a brief moment that felt like an eternity. In that single glance, Elena told him, without saying a word, that she knew everything. But to understand how we got to this moment of poetic justice, we need to go back 3 weeks. Back then, Elena still believed her marriage could be saved, and that Álvaro's lies were just a bad phase. On Tuesday, October 12th, the day began like any other in the luxurious Méndez residence in Bosques de los Lomas. Elena woke up at 5:30 a.m., as she had done for the past 5 years, to prepare the perfect breakfast her husband expected at exactly 7 o'clock. Barefoot, she stepped onto the cold marble floor and headed to the bathroom, avoiding the mirror that would only show her the tired face of a 35-year-old woman whose green eyes had lost their spark. 7 months pregnant, she moved slower now, but she had perfected her routine so that Álvaro could sleep undisturbed. She knew he hated morning noise, and any disturbance was enough to spark an argument that usually ended with him storming out without eating, leaving her feeling like she'd failed as a wife. As she whisked egg whites for his spinach omelet, the baby kicked hard. Elena smiled for the first time in days, gently caressing her belly. "Good morning, little one," she whispered. "Daddy doesn't know you can already hear everything we say." This little morning talk with her baby was the only honest moment she allowed herself in that house, where every word and gesture had to be measured so as not to upset the man of the house. At 6:45, she heard the shower running upstairs. That meant she had exactly 15 minutes to finish breakfast, serve his sugar-free Colombian coffee, toast the bread to his exact shade of golden, and pour fresh orange juice at room temperature. Álvaro walked out of the bedroom dressed in a tailored suit, hair perfectly slicked back, smelling of expensive French cologne. At 42, he was still an attractive man who used his charm like a weapon. "Good morning, dear," he said, sitting at the head of the table. He didn't look at her, didn't ask how she'd slept, and didn't notice that she'd been awake until 2 a.m. because the baby kept her from getting comfortable. His eyes were glued to the phone sitting next to his plate. Elena served his breakfast with the precision of a dancer repeating a well-rehearsed routine. Omelet on the left, toast on the right, orange juice above the plate, coffee in the white porcelain wedding gift cup. "Have a good day," she murmured, waiting, as always, for a reply that never came. Álvaro chewed his food without looking up, typing on his phone. A small smile appeared on his lips, but it wasn't the smile Elena remembered from their early days of marriage. This one was different, private and intimate, and it wasn't for her. Elena felt a knot in her stomach but forced herself to think it was just pregnancy hormones making her jealous. "Something interesting at work?" she asked, trying to sound casual as she served her own breakfast. Álvaro finally looked up, but his expression was irritated, as if she had interrupted something important. "Just business," he said coldly, slipping his phone into his suit pocket. "Nothing you'd be interested in." His tone felt like a slap. Elena had studied business administration and worked in a major consulting firm before they married, but Álvaro always treated her as if she couldn't possibly understand the complexities of his world. The rest of breakfast was silent. Álvaro finished quickly, stood up, and headed for the door without saying goodbye. As always, Elena followed him to hand over his briefcase and wish him a good day, a ritual they had started when they still pretended to be happy. "I'll be late tonight," Álvaro announced while she adjusted his tie. "I have a business dinner." He didn't say with whom, where, or even ask if she needed anything. Elena just nodded, used to his constant absences. The door slammed shut, the sound echoing through the marble hallway. She stood there for a long moment, one hand on her belly, feeling the baby kick restlessly, as if sensing the tension in the house. "It's okay, little one," she whispered. But it was a lie she told herself every day. The Méndez home was a modern architectural masterpiece, featured in design magazines. 3 floors, 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a kitchen worthy of a cooking show, and a garden so perfect it took 3 gardeners to maintain. Everything was spotless, perfectly placed, a reflection of Álvaro's professional success. Yet Elena felt like a guest in her own home, one who could be asked to leave at any moment. After cleaning the kitchen, she went to Álvaro's study to water the plants. She liked taking care of things that could grow and flourish. The study was his private sanctuary, where he spent his late nights supposedly working on important projects. As she filled the watering can, she noticed the office phone blinking. There were new messages. Normally, she wouldn't dare check them, but something about that smile she'd seen at breakfast made her uneasy. Her hands trembled as she pressed play. "Hello, my love," a sensual female voice purred through the speaker. "I hope you slept well after last night. I can't stop thinking about you. I love you, Álvaro. Call me when you can." The message was left at 11 p.m. the night before, when Álvaro claimed he had been in a work meeting. Elena replayed the message 3 times, as if needing to confirm it wasn't a nightmare. The voice sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. Who was this woman who dared call her house, leaving love messages for her husband? How long had Álvaro been seeing someone who could call him my love so naturally? Her legs gave out, and she sank into his leather chair. The baby kicked hard, as if sharing her distress. Elena held her belly and cried silently, trying to process the confirmation of what she had secretly feared for months. Álvaro's late nights had become more frequent over the past 6 months. His excuses had grown more elaborate. Dinners with international clients, conferences that went until midnight, sudden business trips. She had wanted to believe it was just pregnancy paranoia, but now, she had proof her instincts were right all along. That afternoon, Elena decided to dig deeper. She went through the credit card statements that arrived at the house and found charges at expensive restaurants, on the same nights Álvaro had told her he was working late. There were jewelry store purchases that had never become gifts for her. Reservations at luxury hotels on weekends he had supposedly spent in the office. The evidence was overwhelming, but Elena needed to know who the woman was. She decided to call Álvaro's office, something she almost never did, since he had always told her he didn't like being disturbed during work hours. "Méndez Enterprises, good morning." The voice on the other end was the same one she had heard in that late-night voicemail. Elena's breath caught in her throat. "How can I help you?" the woman asked. "I'm looking for Mr. Álvaro Méndez," Elena managed to say, her voice trembling. "Mr. Méndez is in an important meeting. I'm Renata Palazuelos, his image consultant. May I take a message?" The voice was professional, but Elena could detect a certain smugness, as if Renata enjoyed being the gatekeeper who decided who could reach Álvaro. "I'm his wife," Elena said, expecting the tone to change. There was an awkward pause. "Oh, Mrs. Méndez." Renata's voice turned cold and distant. "I'll let him know you called. He'll contact you when he has time." And with that, the line went dead. Elena stayed there, holding the phone, realizing the full weight of her situation. Not only did her husband have a mistress, this woman worked in his office. She had access to him 8 hours a day and clearly had more control over his schedule than Elena herself. The name Renata Palazuelos clicked in her mind. She had heard Álvaro mention it in phone calls before, always in professional contexts. Renata was young, maybe 30, and had joined the company 6 months ago with glowing references and a degree in marketing. Álvaro had called her a promising employee, someone who understood modern market trends and could update the company's image. Now everything made sense. The changes in his wardrobe, the sudden shift to younger styles and modern cuts. The trendy restaurants he now loved but once considered too noisy. The new gym membership, after years of refusing any exercise. Álvaro was trying to become the man Renata wanted him to be. And Elena, 7 months pregnant, her body changed, her social life limited, was in the way. That night, Elena stayed awake, waiting. It was 11:30 p.m. when she heard his car in the garage. He entered quietly, probably hoping she was asleep. but she was sitting in the living room. "How was your work dinner?" she asked, keeping her tone casual. Álvaro flinched slightly.
Fine.
Long and boring, as usual. He headed toward the stairs, clearly avoiding conversation. "Who did you have dinner with?" Elena pressed. "With the marketing team. We were going over strategies for next quarter," he replied smoothly. The lie rolled off his tongue so easily it chilled her. How many times had he lied just like this? Was Renata there too? The question slipped out before Elena could stop herself. Álvaro froze on the first step. "Why are you asking about Renata?" His defensive tone confirmed every suspicion she had. "Just curious," Elena said. "I called her office today and she answered." She seemed very protective. Elena kept her voice calm, but inside, she was falling apart. "Renata is very professional. She does her job well," Álvaro said, climbing 2 more steps. "You should be resting," he added without turning around. "The doctor said you need more sleep." It was typical of Álvaro, using her pregnancy as an excuse to avoid difficult conversations. A mix of rage and sadness tightened in Elena's chest. "Álvaro, we need to talk." "I'm tired," he interrupted, still not looking at her. He went straight to the bathroom upstairs and locked the door. Elena heard the shower running and knew he was washing off the scent of another woman. She sat in the living room for hours, feeling her baby shift restlessly in her belly. She stroked her stomach as tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, little one," she whispered. "Mom didn't know Dad didn't love us anymore." The days after the phone call passed in a blur of confirmed suspicions and silent pain. Elena became a detective in her own home, searching for proof of a betrayal she already knew existed, but now she needed to document everything. Each morning, after Álvaro left for work, she carefully went through his things, looking for traces of Renata Palazuelos. On Friday morning, while sorting Álvaro's closet to send clothes to the dry cleaner, Elena made a discovery that felt like a punch to the stomach. Hidden behind his work suits, wrapped in a clear plastic cover, hung a brand new tuxedo. It was from an exclusive Italian brand Álvaro only wore to the most important events, black silk with satin details, the kind that cost more than some families earned in a month. Elena ran her fingers over the fabric, noticing the tags were still attached. In the pocket, she found the receipt, dated the previous Tuesday, the same day Álvaro had come home late claiming he was exhausted from a meeting. Next to the tuxedo was a crisp white shirt, gold cufflinks she had never seen, and shiny black patent leather shoes. Her heart pounded as she opened the top drawer of Álvaro's dresser and found a small navy blue velvet box. Inside was a handmade bow tie, discreetly embroidered with 2 sets of initials she didn't recognize at first. She leaned closer, and the letters became clear. AMIRP, Álvaro Méndez and Renata Palazuelos. Their initials intertwined, as if they were the real couple. The bow tie slipped from her trembling hands and fell to the floor. Her legs felt weak, and she had to sit on the bed. The baby moved violently inside her, as if sensing her distress. Álvaro was planning to attend some formal event, important enough to buy new clothes and have a custom tie made, and Elena knew nothing about it. In 5 years of marriage, Álvaro had never gone to a high-profile event without her. They had been the perfect couple at dozens of charity galas, corporate dinners, and high-society celebrations. But now it was clear he had other plans. And those plans included Renata. The rest of the day, Elena moved in a daze, trying to process the magnitude of what she'd discovered. Her husband not only had a mistress, he apparently intended to present her publicly. The humiliation would be total. That night, when Álvaro came home, Elena was waiting in the living room with the bow tie in her hands. He stopped in the doorway, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. "What's this?" Elena finally asked, holding up the tie so he could see the embroidered initials. Álvaro closed the door behind him and removed his jacket slowly, as if buying time to come up with an explanation. "It's a tie," he said at last, his condescending tone making Elena's blood boil. "Don't take me for a fool, Álvaro. What event requires a brand new tuxedo? And why are Renata's initials stitched next to yours?" Elena's voice shook with anger and pain. Álvaro sighed, like he was dealing with a spoiled child. Elena, you're pregnant and very emotional. You're imagining things that aren't real. He walked over to the bar, poured himself a whiskey, and spoke with his back to her. The tie is just a corporate gift. Renata organized buying several accessories for the management team. Of course her name is on the paperwork. It was such an elaborate, cold lie that Elena felt sick. So you're telling me it's just a coincidence that her initials are embroidered next to yours on a bow tie that happens to match the brand new tuxedo you bought on Tuesday? She asked, struggling to stand because of her pregnancy. I don't have to explain my clothing choices, Álvaro said, taking a sip of whiskey. If you have time to check my wardrobe, maybe you should focus on getting ready for the baby. His coldness felt like a slap. Elena felt tears in her eyes, but she refused to cry in front of him. Álvaro, I know you're having an affair with Renata. I heard her voice message on the answering machine. I saw the credit card charges. Don't lie to me anymore. For a moment, something in his face changed. His guard dropped, and she saw a flash of guilt. But it vanished just as quickly. You're delusional, he said, finishing his whiskey in one gulp. Pregnancy is making you paranoid. Maybe you should talk to your doctor about anxiety medication. Elena stepped closer, holding the tie in her hands. Look me in the eyes and tell me you're not having an affair with Renata Palazuelos. Álvaro looked straight at her without blinking. I'm not having an affair with Renata Palazuelos. The lie came out so easily it chilled her to the bone. She realized in that moment her husband could look her in the eye and lie without the slightest bit of shame. Then explain this, she said, pulling out her phone. She showed him a photo she had found on the company's social media. It was from a corporate dinner the week before. Álvaro had his arm around Renata's waist, and they smiled like the perfect couple. The caption read, "Our CEO, Álvaro Méndez, and our brilliant image consultant, Renata Palazuelos, at the annual Strategic Partners dinner." Álvaro looked at the photo without flinching. It's a work photo. Renata is very professional and knows how to present herself at events. Professional? Elena scoffed bitterly. Is it professional the way she looks at you? Or the way her hand rests on your chest? She zoomed in to show the details she'd been studying for days. You're obsessed, Álvaro said, pocketing her phone. This is sick, Elena. You need help. Their argument was interrupted by the sound of the house phone. Elena hurried to answer, half expecting to hear Renata's voice. But instead, it was Dr. Carmen Vega, a voice she hadn't heard in months. Elena, it's Carmen Vega. Do you have a moment to talk? The warm voice of her former university professor instantly calmed her. Dr. Vega, what a surprise, Elena said, stepping away from Álvaro, who had already started walking upstairs, pretending not to care about the call. Elena, I'm calling because I need to speak with you about something important. Can you come to my office tomorrow afternoon? It's about a project I've been thinking of you for. Elena agreed, without asking for details. She needed to get out of the house, away from Álvaro's lies, and talk to someone who would treat her with respect and kindness. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay awake listening to Álvaro's deep breathing. Clearly, his conscience wasn't keeping him up. At 2 a.m, Álvaro's phone buzzed on the nightstand. Elena looked at it but didn't dare touch it. The screen lit up with a message from Renata. Tomorrow, the gala is confirmed. I love you. Elena's heart broke even more. Not only did her husband have a mistress, she was taking him to a gala Elena didn't even know about. Álvaro was replacing her completely, and he was doing it with a cruelty she never thought possible. The next morning, Elena woke up with a determination she hadn't felt in months. She dressed carefully, picking a dress that made her pregnant figure look beautiful. She put on makeup for the first time in weeks and went to see Dr. Carmen Vega at the university. Carmen's office looked exactly the same. Walls full of books, photos of her students, and the comforting smell of fresh coffee. Carmen, a warm-hearted woman in her 60s, had been Elena's mentor in college. Elena, you look radiant, Carmen said, hugging her. Thank you, Dr. Vega. It's been a hard time, but this baby is a blessing. Elena sat down, feeling safe for the first time in weeks. Elena, I want to talk to you about something special, Carmen said seriously. As you know, I'm the president of the Sol de Esperanza Foundation, which helps pregnant women in difficult situations. Carmen went on to explain that recently, one of the women they helped had told her about a kind stranger who visited the public hospital every Wednesday, bringing baby items, talking to expectant mothers, and comforting them. That woman was you, Elena, Carmen said, smiling. Elena blushed. For the past 6 months, she had been quietly visiting the hospital to donate supplies and offer emotional support. She'd never told Álvaro, knowing he would think it was a waste of time. I didn't know anyone mentioned me, Elena said shyly. They didn't just mention you. 5 different women told me about you, Carmen said. They described a pregnant, elegant woman who gave them hope and treated them with dignity. I looked into it and confirmed it was you. Elena, what you've been doing is exactly what our foundation stands for. I want to invite you to officially join our team. Tears filled Elena's eyes. At a time when she felt invisible in her own home, someone had noticed her efforts and valued them. But there's more, Carmen added. The foundation is holding its annual fundraising gala next Saturday night at the Hotel Presidente. This year, we want to honor someone who truly represents our values. Elena, we want you to be our guest of honor. Elena sat there stunned. The same gala her husband was taking his mistress to she would be attending too, only she wouldn't be in the shadows. She would be the one everyone was there to celebrate. Would you like to be our special guest? Elena felt like the world stopped. A gala. Next Saturday. The exact night Álvaro was planning to go to a gala with Renata. It was like the universe was handing her the perfect chance to get her dignity back. Dr. Carmen, it would be an honor, Elena said, feeling a new strength growing inside her. Perfect. And Elena, if you need someone to go with you, I have someone in mind. Do you remember Mateo Alvarado? He was your classmate in constitutional law. Now he's a federal judge and one of our biggest sponsors. When I told him we were honoring you, he immediately offered to be your escort. Elena remembered Mateo very well. Back in college, he had been one of her best friends, a good and brilliant man who always treated her with respect and admiration. They had lost contact after she married Álvaro, but she still had fond memories of him. I'd love for Mateo to join me, Elena said, feeling like the pieces of a perfect plan were falling into place. That night, Elena went home with more energy than she'd felt in months. Álvaro was in his study, talking quietly on the phone. She caught parts of his conversation. The red dress we picked. Perfect for the occasion. Everyone will turn to look at us. When he hung up and walked into the kitchen, he found Elena making dinner with a smile. You seem happy, he said, surprised. I had a very productive day, she replied, without giving more details. During dinner, Álvaro casually said, By the way, next Saturday I have a work event. A charity gala. Boring stuff the company is sponsoring. It'll be late and probably tedious. Not something you'd enjoy in your condition. Elena smiled calmly. Don't worry about me. I'm sure I'll find something interesting to do that night. Álvaro looked relieved. She didn't insist on going. Good. Renata will come with me to handle the company's public relations. It's important to have a professional presence at these events. Of course, Elena said, taking a sip of water. Renata seems very dedicated to her work. That night, while Álvaro slept soundly, Elena searched online for the Sol de Esperanza Foundation Gala. It was exactly the same event Álvaro planned to attend with Renata. His company was listed as a main sponsor, and now Elena knew he was in for a surprise he would never forget. At 3 a.m., Elena's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Elena, this is Mateo Alvarado. Carmen gave me your number. I'm excited to accompany you to the gala on Saturday. It'll be an honor to be by your side on such a special night. Sleep well. The message came with a photo. Mateo, now 40, looked even better than she remembered, silver hair at the temples giving him a distinguished look, and a smile full of honesty. Elena smiled in the dark, touching her belly. Little one, she whispered to her baby, Mom is going to get her dignity back, and Dad is going to learn that lies always have consequences. In the days after meeting Dr. Carmen Vega, Elena lived in a strange double life. On one side, she kept the perfect house and morning breakfasts that Álvaro expected, forcing polite smiles when he came home from work. On the other side, a secret and powerful energy kept growing inside her, fueled by the thought of the gala. On Wednesday morning, she decided to make one last visit to the general hospital before the big night. She wanted to see the women who, without knowing it, had changed her life by talking to Dr. Carmen about her volunteer work. She put on a comfortable navy blue maternity dress and drove to the public hospital, the place that had been her emotional refuge for the past 6 months. The General Hospital was a red brick building from the 1970s, nothing like the fancy private clinics where Elena went for her prenatal checkups. The hallways smelled like disinfectant, and the waiting rooms were always packed with women whose tired faces told stories of survival. It was exactly the kind of place Álvaro would call depressing, and one he'd never step into. But for Elena, this hospital meant something she had lost to her marriage, the chance to be useful, to truly make a difference in someone's life. Every Wednesday afternoon, she came with bags full of baby items, diapers, bottles, hand-knitted blankets she bought at local markets. But more than the gifts, it was the time she spent sitting with expectant mothers, listening to their fears, sharing their hopes, that mattered most. That morning, Elena found Maria Elena in the maternity waiting area. She was just 19, expecting her first child, with no help from the baby's father and very little money. Elena had met her 3 months ago, when the young woman was crying because she couldn't afford prenatal vitamins. "Señora Elena," Maria Elena said, struggling to stand with her 8-month belly. "I didn't expect to see you today. I thought you only came on Wednesdays." Elena hugged her warmly. "I wanted to say goodbye. My baby will be born soon, and I might not be able to come as often." It wasn't the whole truth. The reality was, after the gala, Elena knew her life would change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. "You changed my life," Maria Elena said, holding Elena's hands. "When I met you, I was desperate. I thought I wouldn't be a good mother, that my baby deserved better than me. But you taught me that love is the most important thing a mother can give." Her words touched Elena deeply. In the past months, as her marriage fell apart, these talks with strong, resilient women had reminded her of her own worth. "Maria Elena, that strength was always inside you. I just helped you remember it." Elena then visited others. Lupita, 35, pregnant with her 5th child after her husband lost his job. Carmen, a 17-year-old kicked out of her home when her parents learned she was pregnant. Rosa, 40, finally expecting after years of trying, but now battling gestational diabetes and the fear that came with it. Each had a story of struggle, survival, and unconditional love for the baby they carried. Elena saw herself in them, not in their financial struggles, but in the shared experience of motherhood, with all its vulnerability and hope. When she left the hospital that morning, she carried more than memories. She carried the certainty that she had found her purpose, her identity beyond being the wife of Álvaro Méndez. These women saw her not as the wife of a wealthy businessman, but as Elena, a woman who understood their fears and celebrated their strength. The next morning, Elena got an unexpected call from Mateo Alvarado. His voice was exactly as she remembered from college, warm, smart, and calm in a way that had always impressed her. "Elena, I hope I'm not bothering you," he said. "Carmen gave me your number because I wanted to coordinate some details for the gala." His tone was formal, but Elena could still hear genuine warmth in it. "Not at all, Mateo. It's so good to hear from you after all these years." Elena was sitting in her garden, enjoying the morning sun as she talked on the phone. "Elena," Mateo began, "when Carmen told me about the work you've been doing at the hospital, I wasn't surprised at all. You've always been the most caring person in our group." He paused. "I still remember how you organized fundraisers for students who were struggling and how you always found time to tutor anyone who needed help." Elena smiled, remembering those days when her life felt full of purpose and genuine connections. "We were such idealists in college, weren't we?" she said. "Yes," Mateo replied. "We thought we could change the world." "But you never stopped trying." "That's why it's perfect that you're the guest of honor at this gala. Carmen told me some of the women you've helped will be there, They want to thank you in person. The thought filled Elena with a happiness she hadn't felt in years. This night wouldn't just be about standing tall in front of Álvaro and Renata. It would be about being surrounded by people who truly valued her. "Mateo, there's something I need to tell you," she said. "My marriage is in trouble. My husband doesn't know I've been volunteering, and he definitely doesn't know I'm being honored at the gala." There was a quiet pause before Mateo answered. "Elena, you don't need to explain anything to me. I'm your friend. My only concern is that you feel comfortable and supported that night. You know what's ironic?" Elena gave a sad, knowing laugh. "My husband's company is one of the main sponsors of the gala. He's going to be there, but not with me." Mateo was silent for a moment, processing. "If you need me to handle anything that night, just tell me. My priority is your dignity." "Mateo, just be yourself." "That's more than enough," she said, deeply grateful for his kindness. Before ending the call, Mateo added, "Oh, one more thing. Carmen asked me to tell you there will be media coverage. Society magazines, local newspapers, even some TV stations. Your recognition will be public. I hope you're ready." After hanging up, Elena sat in the garden, thinking about what that meant. Her triumph would be documented, but so would Álvaro's humiliation. Part of her felt guilty for looking forward to it, but another part knew he had brought this on himself with his lies and betrayal. By Friday morning, Elena decided she needed a special dress for the gala. She couldn't wear anything from her closet. Those dresses were tied to events where she had played the part of the perfect, silent wife. Tonight, she needed something that showed the woman she was becoming. She drove to Polanco, to the luxury boutique district. But instead of her usual conservative stores, she went into a new boutique specializing in stylish, elegant maternity fashion. The owner, a French woman named Isabelle, seemed to understand exactly what Elena wanted without many words. "Madam, you need something that makes you feel powerful, don't you?" Isabelle asked with a knowing smile. "Exactly," Elena replied. "I want a dress that says I'm proud to be a woman, proud to be a mother, and proud to be myself." Isabelle disappeared into the back and returned with a dress that made Elena catch her breath. It was deep red silk, glowing as if it had its own light. The cut was elegant, with a modest but flattering neckline, three-quarter sleeves, and a silhouette that celebrated her pregnancy instead of hiding it. "This is by an Italian designer who believes motherhood is the most powerful state of womanhood," Isabelle explained as Elena tried it on. "She says a pregnant woman carries the future inside her, and that's something to show with pride, not to hide." When Elena looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The woman staring back stood tall, chin lifted, eyes glowing with a light that had been missing for months. The red dress didn't just show her pregnancy, it made her feel stronger than ever. "It's perfect," Elena whispered, touching the fabric gently. Isabelle smiled knowingly. "Madam, this dress was made for you." When a woman finds the right dress, she doesn't just look different, she feels different. And when a woman feels powerful, the whole world notices. Elena bought the dress, along with nude-colored heels that added height without sacrificing comfort, a small gold clutch to match, and pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother. Jewelry Álvaro had never valued, but that symbolized the strength of the women in her family. That night, she hid her purchases in the guest room closet. Álvaro was in his study, talking on the phone with Renata, planning every detail of their big night together. She could hear parts of the conversation, when to arrive, where their table would be, who Álvaro wanted to meet. "Tomorrow will be perfect," he told Renata. "It will be our night, my love. All of the city's high society will be there, and we can finally be together in public." In the darkness of the guest room, Elena smiled. He was right, tomorrow would be perfect, but not for the reason he thought. Saturday morning came with clear skies and bright sunlight, as if the universe itself was blessing the day. Elena woke feeling calmer than she had in months. Álvaro was already getting ready for what he believed would be his grand public debut with Renata. At breakfast, Álvaro was unusually talkative, clearly excited. "This gala is important for the company," he told Elena as she served his usual omelet. "Lots of new contacts, business opportunities, press coverage. Renata's worked hard to make sure we have a strong media presence. That sounds like a very special night, Elena replied honestly. It was special, just not in the way he imagined. Yes, it's a night I'll remember for the rest of my life, she said. Álvaro finished his coffee and stood up. I'll probably be home very late, so don't wait up. Don't worry, Elena said, clearing the table. I have plans tonight too. Plans? What kind of plans? He asked. Nothing big. Maybe a movie, a relaxing bath, quiet things good for my condition. She smiled innocently. Satisfied with her answer, Álvaro kissed her forehead, a mechanical gesture that had long replaced real intimacy, and left. Once he was gone, Elena began her secret preparations. She took a long bath with scented salts, applied a face mask, and styled her hair into an elegant shape that framed her face perfectly. At 4 p.m., Mateo called to confirm he'd pick her up at 6:30. Elena, are you nervous? He asked gently. Strangely, no, she admitted. I feel like tonight is the start of something new, something better. That's exactly how it should be, Mateo said warmly. I'm honored to go with you tonight, not just as your friend, but as someone who deeply admires the woman you've become. At 6 p.m., Elena slipped into the red dress and looked at herself one last time in the full-length mirror. She saw a woman who was strong, dignified, radiant. A woman who had turned pain into compassion and betrayal into the power to rebuild herself. When the doorbell rang at 6:30 sharp, she picked up her gold clutch, put on her grandmother's pearl earrings, and walked toward the front door of the house that had been her emotional prison for years. Mateo stood by a sleek black car, dressed in a flawless tuxedo that made him look both distinguished and trustworthy. When he saw Elena, his expression softened into genuine admiration. Elena, he said, offering his hand to help her down the steps, you look absolutely radiant. Thank you, Mateo. I feel free, she replied, taking his arm. As the car headed toward the hotel, Elena felt that with each passing mile, she was moving not just toward the gala, but toward a completely new future. In just a few hours, Álvaro would find out that the woman he had underestimated for years was actually stronger, more valuable, and more admired than he had ever imagined. Ready? Mateo asked as they got closer to the hotel. Elena smiled, gently touching her belly, where her baby seemed to move with excitement. More than ready, she replied. The Presidente Hotel stood tall and majestic against the city's night sky, its windows sparkling like diamonds in the dark. Camera flashes lit up the main entrance, where a red carpet stretched from the sidewalk to the glass doors of the lobby. Valet drivers rushed back and forth, parking luxury cars and helping out Mexico's most prominent guests. Álvaro Méndez arrived at 7:45 p.m., driving his freshly washed black Mercedes-Benz, which gleamed under the lights. In the passenger seat, Renata Palazuelos touched up her makeup one last time and adjusted the neckline of her navy blue dress, chosen specifically to contrast with the corporate colors of Méndez Enterprises. Her hair was in a sleek bun, and she wore borrowed jewelry from an exclusive boutique, the perfect image of a powerful businessman's companion. Ready for our big night? Álvaro asked, squeezing her hand before getting out. He smiled like a man who thought he had everything under control, perfectly swapping his pregnant wife at home for a glamorous mistress in public. More than ready, Renata replied with a confident smile. Tonight, everyone will know we're a power couple. Her eyes sparkled with ambition, already picturing their photos in society magazines, the important connections she would make, and the social status she would gain by being on Álvaro's arm. As soon as they stepped out of the car, camera flashes went off. Álvaro had tipped off a few social photographers ahead of time to make sure their entrance was well documented. They walked slowly down the red carpet, posing for photos. Álvaro in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, Renata with the practiced smile she'd rehearsed in front of a mirror for weeks. Mr. Méndez, a reporter called out. Who's your lovely companion tonight? This is Renata Palazuelos, my company's brilliant image consultant, Álvaro said proudly, sliding his arm around her waist in a way that made it clear their relationship went far beyond work. And where's your wife tonight? another reporter asked. Álvaro kept smiling, but Renata could feel him tense slightly. My wife is at home resting. As you know, she's expecting our first child and prefers to avoid long events at this stage of the pregnancy. The reporters nodded politely, but some exchanged looks that said they knew exactly what was going on. In Mexico's high society, it was common for powerful men to bring their lovers to big events while their wives stayed home quietly. Álvaro and Renata walked into the grand ballroom, transformed into a scene of dazzling elegance. White silk tablecloths, floral arrangements of white roses and orchids that cost more than many families made in a month, and 500 guests dressed in their finest filled the room. People mingled in small groups, forming and breaking apart based on the city's social and business hierarchy. The main table, where the top sponsors of the Sol de Esperanza Foundation sat, was right in front of the stage. Álvaro had paid 50,000 pesos for that table, not just for the prestige, but to make sure he and Renata would be in full view all night. He approached Roberto Mendoza, director of one of the country's biggest construction companies, who was with his wife Claudia. Good to see you, Álvaro said warmly. And who is this beautiful lady? Roberto asked. Roberto, Claudia, I'd like you to meet Renata Palazuelos, Álvaro said, introducing her as if it were perfectly normal to bring his lover to a social event. Renata is the reason Méndez Enterprises completely modernized its corporate image this year. Claudia Mendoza looked at Renata with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind of polite smile high society women reserve for young mistresses who still don't understand the unspoken rules. A pleasure to meet you, dear. And your husband is here tonight, too. Oh, I'm not married, Renata replied with a smile meant to seem innocent, but it only showed how inexperienced she was in these situations. Roberto and Claudia exchanged a quick look. Álvaro thought it was admiration for his new conquest, but in truth, it was a mix of pity and disgust. They had known Elena for years, had seen her elegance and dignity at countless events, and they both realized they were witnessing a public humiliation she didn't deserve. At 8:30, the master of ceremonies, a well-known TV actor, stepped on stage. His deep, commanding voice instantly grabbed everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the annual gala of the Sol de Esperanza Foundation. His voice rang through the speakers. Tonight, we gather to celebrate the incredible work our foundation does for pregnant women in vulnerable situations and to honor those who dedicate their time and resources to this noble cause. Álvaro settled into his seat, enjoying the air of importance around him. Under the table, Renata held his hand, smiling at the cameras capturing every moment. Neither noticed the sideways glances from guests, some curious, others openly disapproving. Before we begin dinner, the host continued, we have the honor of recognizing a very special woman. Someone who, without seeking public attention, has spent months helping expectant mothers in need. Álvaro barely listened, busy scanning the room for influential politicians and business people he could network with. Renata was secretly taking photos of the decor and guests to post on her social media later. This woman has visited public hospitals, delivered supplies to struggling families, and given emotional support to mothers abandoned by the system, the host said, pausing dramatically. Her work has been so impactful that many of the women she helped personally requested we honor her tonight. A wave of curiosity spread through the room. Guests began looking around, wondering who it might be. Álvaro finally paid attention, wondering if he knew her. Ladies and gentlemen, the host's voice rose with pride. It is my great honor to present tonight's guest of honor, a woman whose compassion and dedication truly represent the heart of our foundation. And now, please welcome Elena Díaz Méndez. The moment the announcer said her name, the whole room went silent, so silent it felt like time itself had stopped. 500 guests turned to look at the grand staircase, where the guest of honor always appeared. Álvaro felt the blood drain from his face. His hands started shaking so badly, he thought he might be hallucinating. Renata stared at him, confused. She didn't yet understand what had just happened, but she could see the shock on his face. What's wrong? She whispered. He couldn't answer. His throat had closed up. At the top of the staircase, Elena appeared, like a vision straight out of a dream. Her red silk dress shimmered under the lights, giving her an almost otherworldly glow. She was 7 months pregnant, but instead of looking fragile, she looked powerful and radiant, like a goddess of life walking among mortals. Next to her was Mateo Alvarado, calm and confident, a man used to holding positions of power and respect. His presence at her side made one thing clear: Elena was valued and protected by important people. She walked down each step slowly, with perfect posture and a calm smile, letting everyone in the room see her. Her eyes sparkled with deep, unshakable confidence. She didn't look directly at Alvaro's table, but it didn't matter. Her presence filled the entire room. The photographers, expecting another routine charity event, instantly knew this was something different. Camera flashes went off in rapid bursts, capturing every moment, every detail of her dress, every expression on her face. "Oh my God," Claudia Mendoza murmured at the table next to Alvaro's. "That's Elena Méndez. Did you know she's been doing volunteer work?" Her husband, Roberto, shook his head, just as stunned. At the main table, Álvaro had completely lost his composure. His face had gone pale gray against his black tuxedo. His hands were trembling so badly he had to hide them under the table. Renata finally understood when she put the name together with Alvaro's reaction. "That's your wife," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Álvaro, that's your pregnant wife. And she's here, being honored while you're here with me." Álvaro couldn't respond. His mind couldn't process what he was seeing. Elena, his wife, who he thought was at home watching TV, was being celebrated in front of Mexico's elite for work he knew nothing about. The woman he had dismissed as dull and unimportant was now receiving a public honor. Elena reached the stage, where Dr. Carmen Vega greeted her warmly. Their hug was full of genuine affection and years of respect. Carmen took the microphone. "6 months ago," she began, her voice full of emotion, "one of our beneficiaries told me about a special woman who appeared during one of the hardest moments of her pregnancy. She didn't just bring diapers and vitamins. She sat with her for hours, listened to her fears, and helped her find hope." Álvaro felt as if the entire room was staring at him, even though most eyes were on the stage. Those who knew about his marriage began whispering, connecting the dots: the honored pregnant woman on stage, and the husband sitting in the audience with another woman. "When we looked into it," Carmen continued, "we found out that Elena had been visiting the General Hospital every Wednesday for the past 6 months, quietly helping pregnant women with no resources or family support. She wasn't looking for recognition. She just wanted to help." Carmen handed Elena the microphone. For the first time that night, Elena looked toward Alvaro's table. Their eyes met for just a moment, but in that moment, she told him everything she hadn't said for months: her pain, her disappointment, and her strength to move forward without him. "If you want, I can also make a shorter, punchier version of this scene for storytelling that keeps all the tension but moves faster. That would be perfect if you're aiming for a viral-style narrative. Would you like me to do that next?" "Good evening," Elena said, her voice clear and strong, echoing through the sound system. "When Dr. Carmen asked me to come tonight, I hesitated. I don't see myself as a hero or someone who deserves special recognition. I'm just a pregnant woman who found strength in other pregnant women, a strength I didn't know I needed." The room fell silent. Every person was focused completely on Elena's words. Even the waiters stopped moving, standing still to listen. "These past months," she continued, "I've learned that real wealth isn't about bank accounts or property. It's about connecting with other human beings, offering help when someone needs it, and finding purpose in serving those more vulnerable than us." Renata began to cry quietly, not from emotion, but from fear. She realized her relationship with Álvaro had just become a public scandal. Guests nearby were staring at them and whispering, and it was clear their words weren't kind. "The women I've met at the General Hospital have taught me about courage," Elena went on, her voice growing stronger. "They've shown me that you can face impossible situations when you know who you are and what your values are. They've reminded me that no woman should ever accept less respect, less love, or less dignity than she deserves." Álvaro felt every word like a knife. Elena was talking about dignity and respect while he sat in public with his lover. She spoke about values while he had spent months lying and betraying her. She was being celebrated for her compassion, while he was being exposed for his cruelty. "I want to dedicate this recognition," Elena said, placing her hand on her pregnant belly, "to my soon-to-be-born child. I hope to be the kind of mother who teaches him to value honesty over convenience, integrity over shallow success, and real love over empty appearances." The applause was deafening and didn't stop. All 500 guests stood up at once, giving Elena a standing ovation rarely seen at events like this. Camera flashes went off non-stop, capturing every moment of her triumph. Elena stayed on stage for several minutes, accepting the applause with grace and humility. When she finally stepped down, she was immediately surrounded by guests wanting to congratulate her and meet her: powerful businesspeople, politicians' wives, charity leaders. Everyone wanted to be connected to the woman who had just proven that true power comes from personal integrity. Álvaro tried to reach her, pushing through the crowd, but Mateo Alvarado quietly stepped in, blocking him with the calm authority of a federal judge. "I think Elena has had enough excitement for one night," Mateo said firmly. "I need to talk to my wife," Álvaro insisted, his voice full of desperation. "Your wife is busy receiving the recognition she deserves," Mateo replied. "Maybe you should respect that this moment belongs to her." Elena, hearing their exchange, walked over. For the first time in years, she looked at Álvaro from a place of strength, not weakness. Álvaro spoke calmly. "I hope you enjoyed the gala." "I certainly did." "Elena, we need to talk," he said, completely ignoring the people around them who were watching with fascination. "I don't think there's much to talk about," Elena replied. "At least not tonight." She turned to Mateo and smiled. "Ready to go?" "It's been a perfect night." Mateo offered his arm, and together they walked toward the hotel exit. Photographers followed, snapping pictures of Elena walking arm in arm with a man who clearly respected and valued her. These images were a sharp contrast to the earlier photos of Álvaro and Renata taken at the start of the evening. Renata, who had stayed at the main table during the entire scene, finally walked over to Álvaro. "We need to leave," she whispered urgently. "Everyone's staring. This is a disaster." Álvaro looked around and saw she was right. Guests were watching with a mix of gossip-fueled curiosity and open disapproval. Photographers were now taking pictures of them too, images that would clearly not be flattering. In the days that followed, the fallout hit like a social earthquake. Photos of Elena receiving her award appeared in every high society magazine and local newspaper. Headlines praised her volunteer work and elegance, while subtly contrasting her with the photos of Álvaro and Renata, which told a completely different story. One gossip magazine called it "The Perfect Wife versus the Ambitious Mistress." A famous columnist wrote, "The businessman who traded gold for copper." But the most viral headline on social media was, "When Karma Wears a Red Dress." Renata was the first to abandon the sinking ship. The Tuesday after the gala, she resigned from Méndez Enterprises by email, claiming she had received a job offer in another city. In truth, she realized that being tied to Álvaro had now become a professional and social liability that could destroy her future in the city. Important clients began questioning whether they wanted to keep working with a man who had publicly humiliated his pregnant wife. 3 major contracts were canceled in the first week after the gala, with vague excuses about changes in corporate priorities, excuses Álvaro understood all too well. Meanwhile, Elena began receiving offers she never imagined. The Sol de Esperanza Foundation formally offered her the position of Director of Community Programs. 2 private hospitals contacted her to create support programs for pregnant patients. A prestigious university invited her to give lectures on social responsibility and volunteer work. By Friday of that week, Elena was sitting in a stylish yet cozy office downtown, signing the contract that made her the new Director of Community Programs at Sol de Esperanza. Her desk overlooked a park where young mothers strolled with their children. The walls were decorated with photos of women the foundation had helped over the years. "Are you sure you want to start this now?" asked Dr. Carmen, glancing at Elena's belly, which seemed to have grown even more during the week of intense emotions. "Carmen," Elena said, gently touching her belly. I've never been so sure about anything in my life. My son will be born knowing his mother is a woman who fights for what she believes in, not someone who hides behind lies and appearances. That same afternoon, Elena received the divorce papers she had requested from a marriage lawyer Matteo had recommended. The separation would be clean and respectful, no public drama, no long legal battles. Faced with proof of his affairs and the public's sympathy for Elena, Álvaro accepted all the terms without a fight. On Sunday morning, 3 weeks after the gala, Elena woke up in the small apartment she had rented near her new office. It was much smaller than the mansion she once shared with Álvaro, but every corner reflected her true personality. The walls were covered with photos of the women she had helped at the hospital and thank you letters she had received after the gala. Her phone rang while she was making breakfast. It was Matteo, who had kept in touch during the last few weeks, always offering legal and emotional support, never pressuring her for more. Good morning, Elena. How are you feeling today? Matteo asked warmly. I feel free, Elena replied, resting her hand on her belly where her baby was moving. For the first time in years, I feel truly free. Would you like to have lunch with me? There's a little restaurant near the park where we could sit outside, Matteo suggested. Elena smiled, looking out the window at the future ahead of her, like a blank canvas waiting to be painted. I'd love to, she said. But this time, it's my treat. I have so much to celebrate. As she got ready to leave, Elena looked in the mirror of the apartment that was now truly her home. The woman staring back at her had bright eyes, straight shoulders, and a smile that came from deep within. She had lost a marriage built on lies but gained something far more valuable, self-respect, and a future built on integrity and purpose. Her baby kicked hard, as if eager to come into a world where his mother would be an example of strength and dignity. Elena stroked her belly and whispered, Little one, you'll be born into a family where love is real, promises are kept, and you'll never have to be ashamed of who you are or where you come from.